Hello, everybody. My name is Mike Mills, and I am a mortgage banker here in DFW. And my team and I focus on helping local agents grow their business by providing insights into all aspects of real estate. We can show you how to better market yourself, provide referrals to great real estate related vendors in the area that will take amazing care of your clients, and provide some simple tips and tricks to streamline your business so you can help more buyers and sellers. So if you would like to have a conversation about your business or want any help, please do not hesitate to reach out. And of course, if you have any buyers needing to get pre-approved to purchase a home, we would love to take care of them as well. All right, there's my daily commercial. So today is a very special episode of the Texas Real Estate and Finance Podcast, not only because it is number 40, so it's a little bit of a milestone, but I figured for this very special Valentine's Day, I would bring in my favorite realtor / Valentine, my beautiful, intelligent, and feisty fireball of a wife, Susan Mills. I even got a little. That was my my production value for you right there. So there's how it goes. So how you doing today, my love?
Wonderful.
Are you excited to be here, or how you feeling about doing this whole thing with me today?
Yeah, I mean, well, it kind of stinks because you have like a ton of experience, and I'm a little nervous and feeling a little dorky, but it's going to be fine.
So why don't you tell everybody about your sweater there, so they know how good of a job I did today.
I bought myself my Valentine's Day gift, which was my sweater and my earrings, so I would be dressed appropriately for Valentine's Day.
Right.
And then, but although you did come in, there with my favorite thing in the world,
which is food. Yes.
Well, champagne and snacks.
The idea is if I can get you a little liquored up before we do this thing, we'll have a little bit better chit chat, I guess. Cause I don't know if many people realize, but we don't really talk very much.
Oh yeah. Well, that's kind of surprising because you talk a lot, and I do feel like I'm a decent communicator, but we don't communicate at all during the day.
No.
Like if I call, you will immediately answer or call me immediately back because that means that there's something of urgent importance or an emergency or something big.
Right.
Because we don't talk. Somebody will be like, oh, the other day they were like, I don't know if Mike told you this, but we talked, and I was like, no, he didn't tell me because we don't talk. We don't text at all through the day. Now we do download like in the evening time with the highlights, but we really don't talk very much.
Yes. No, there's not a lot of communication that happens during the day. It does happen at night, but during the day, we're usually busy doing our own things. I'm doing stuff like this, and you are out trying to sell some houses and taking care of our house in particular. So that's great. So Christy says hello.
Hey, Mama.
All right. So I'm curious, what are your thoughts on this is Valentine's Day, which is why we're doing this. But you're a woman, and Valentine's Day is a holiday that I tend to think is geared more towards the ladies. So what are your personal opinions on Valentine's Day yourself?
I mean, I guess personally, we've been together, married 19 years next month, together for 22 or 23. I mean, I'm fortunate because I have a great husband, and you love me and show me that you love me throughout the year. I don't need like that one day where you're like, oh, I feel like you're cool, and then the other 364 days you're a jerk. But I do think it's fun to get gifts for the kids and to kind of celebrate together. But overall, I mean, I don't think it has a lot of importance. I think at the beginning of our marriage or the beginning of our dating, it was important to me, but not anymore.
Yeah. You're not putting balloons on my car anymore?
Oh my God. No.
You want to tell that story?
Well, I mean, it's weird because I feel like people tend to show love and their love language until you really get to know somebody.
Right.
And I think my love language is acts of service for sure. Like I appreciate when you get me coffee in the morning and do nice things, throughout the day. But when were we like our very first? Was it Valentine's Day? I can't even remember. This was a long time ago.
I don't know. It might have been my birthday. I don't recall.
I don't know. But I got balloons and put them on your car, and you were not super happy.
It was at work. You put them on my car at work.
Yeah, that was cute.
Right. And I was like a 20-year-old guy, and I walk outside and I've got balloons on my car. I wasn't mad. I was just like, it's not really my jam. So it wasn't really my thing, but that's okay. I mean, you do things differently, but that's what makes this work so well because we're very different people. So it tends to balance itself out. All All right. So today we're going to chat a little bit about us, kind of give a little backstory as to how the Mills family kind of came about. We also are going to talk a little bit about, we did a renovation show recently on the Magnolia Network that we had broadcast a couple months back. And so we're going to chat just a little bit about that. And then we're also going to go into some stuff that's a little bit more in your expertise realm, which is, one of the things that of your many, many talents that you have, one of those particularly is obviously selling and helping people buy real estate. But you love to buy things or shop or whatever. I know it's a cliche. It's a female cliche that we're all really good at shop, or that you're all really good at shopping. But however, this is something that you actually do.
I am really good at it.
Yes.
That's why I do it all the time.
Yeah, on quite the regular basis. Always telling me about all kinds of wonderful things that you purchased that we basically, in your opinion, got for free, essentially, but whatever. So we're going to go through that a little bit, especially related to real estate in particular. So that way, if you guys are looking to list your house, or if you just bought a home and you want to spruce it up a little bit, she does have some ninja shopping tricks that she could probably help you out with a little bit. So that'll be good. But before we get into all of that, why don't you, I would like to hear you tell the story of how we met, and then also what you did before real estate, and then kind of how you got into real estate today.
Yeah. Okay. So, first of all, I kind of credit the fact that we're together with Lindsay Rainey.
Lindsay Rainey, okay.
Lindsay is one of my best childhood friends from the beginning of time. And her sister Jennifer worked at Outback Steakhouse. And we were college roommates. So we were besties all through high school and then college roommates. And she was like, hey, I want to start waiting tables. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, if you're going to do it, I'm going to do it. And so we both got a job at Outback Steakhouse. And I was in the Houston market, which is where I grew up.
Right.
And you started waiting tables at Outback in Lubbock when you were at Tech. And just kismet, God's timing, we ended up in Arlington at the same time. And it was crazy because there was all the Arlington natives. There was one by the Parks Mall and one over like North Collins. And I had interviewed at both and got the opportunity to choose, and ended up going with the Parks Mall. And that's where you were.
Yes.
So you were the cutest bartender that I had ever seen.
Of course.
And I had been waiting tables. Yeah. And that's how we met. And we didn't like each other at first.
What do you mean? I liked you a lot. You didn't like me? Why didn't you like me?
I mean, you're kind of a lot.
I'm kind of a lot. Okay. Why didn't you like me?
Well, I mean, not that I didn't like you, but I had that boyfriend too.
Yes,
I was dating somebody else.
Well, yes.
So I guess we just were kind of like in a friend.
The 50-year-old guy, guy.
We were we were in the friend group, friend zone, and then so that's how we met, waiting tables, bartending.
Yeah, but would you like to elaborate on how we initially started dating? Because if you remember, I wanted to go out with you, and you did not want to go out with me at the time because you were dating that other dude.
Oh yeah, because I was dating him.
And then what changed your mind?
Oh God, because you started dating that girl, made me mad, made me jealous, actually. And so so that. When you kind of lost interest, I was like, I don't think so.
Yes. So that's the tip is, make sure if you want to chase somebody down, just pretend like you don't give a damn about them for a short amount of time, and then they come crawling back pretty quickly. I don't
know that was crawling back necessarily, but yeah.
That's how I like to remember it.
That's kind of what
I prefer to go from there. So,
okay. Yep.
All right. So then we start dating. And so what happens from there?
Yeah. So, we ended up dating through college, got married shortly after or right before you graduated from school.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a year behind you.
What year did we meet? 2000? Is that right?
Yes.
And we started dating in 01, probably?
Yeah. And then married in 2004.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, So we married and worked together. Then we kind of work. Now we don't work together, but we work in the same industry. We certainly worked together.
Yes.
Back then.
Yes, because we were both waiting tables and bartending at the time, and working at the restaurant together. So we definitely enjoyed that lifestyle, partied a lot, went out to the bars, hung out, hung out with friends, did all that kind of fun stuff, went to the club, and enjoyed ourselves there as well. And then you ended up getting a big girl job. What's up, Conrad? Conrad's checking in with us today.
Hey, CJ.
You ended up, I want you to tell a story about graduating from college and getting your first job and what that was like.
that was not ideal.
Okay.
Okay, so what
Try to
happened?
hit the table less.
Yeah. Well, what happened was I graduated school and I have a Bachelor of Arts in Business Communication. So kind of just like a general not a marketing degree, but just a general communications degree, and had been applying everywhere, of course, out of school, and was having a really hard time finding a job that would pay me what I felt what I was worth with zero experience in the real world. And I was a Coors Light girl at the time. Because after we left Outback, I ended up working in promotions for the ticket and the radio stations and all of that stuff.
Right.
And didn't have any real world working experience except for that. Mm-hmm. And your sweet mother, who I love, I'm so lucky I have a wonderful mother-in-law. She hired me to do HIPAA compliance at her job. Mm-hmm. And I was working, it was my first 40-hour-a-week job. I had never worked anything like that before. I was working like 3 to 5 hours a week.
Yes.
At the other jobs. And I was so excited it was paid. And first of all, okay, it was like a nice office, and I had like a big girl situation going on, and I was super, super excited. And worked 40 hours a week, and this was for 2 weeks. So for 80 hours of work, the lady comes around, she gives everybody our paychecks.
What were you making at the time?
Oh man, I don't know, like $11 an hour maybe.
Okay. Was it that much? That was pretty good.
Yeah,
at that time.
Something like that. I mean,
Okay.
This was, I can't remember the year, 2020 or 2002 maybe.
Okay.
Anyhow, I open up my paycheck and I'm looking at it, and all of a sudden, like teardrops start rolling out of my eyes, and they're like dripping on the check. And I'm like, I just worked 80 hours.
And how much was it?
I can't remember, but first of all, shout out to my parents. I have the best parents in the entire world. On Valentine's Day, they have been married for like a jillion years. I'd embarrassed myself to say for how long, because I don't really know. They married in 1974, whatever that math is. Mm-hmm. And they provided so well for me and paid for my college, and I had a really great start. And I did have money that they sent. And
you got mailbox money on the reg.
I got money. They were awesome. Anyhow, whatever that check was less than what my dad sent me for
once a week to help you pay your rent.
For whatever
else.
It was. Yeah. Yes. What a car and rent and all of that. So yeah, it wasn't ideal.
And it crushed your soul. And then you came home and cried about it because you didn't have a real concept of what work was like. You did have quite the charmed life, right? When you were growing up, your parents took great care of you. You got your college paid for, which was awesome. But you worked really hard.
Yeah.
And you went to school, got your degree, and got out and got moving. So then we go from you're working for my mom, doing all those kind of things, but then you get involved in the golf industry, right?
Yeah. So I got really, really lucky with that, because this is kind of
Is it weird that I'm like interviewing you? Is this a strange conversation? That
it is.
I'm like asking you about questions that I already know the answer to. It's kind of strange. But
yeah, anyway. It is. But here's what happened is that we were buying our first car together.
Mm-hmm. Before we were married.
Yeah, before. Well, because
you had good credit. My credit was terrible.
Yeah, because my parents helped me so much. That's neither here nor there.
Yes.
So anyway, we had gone to buy a car, and I knew that I was looking for something professionally, and fashion merchandising and all that kind of cool stuff, although it had nothing to do with my degree, was something that I was interested in. And the wife of our salesman had worked for a company called Talbot's. I don't know if many people know what that is. That's
is this still around?
I honestly don't really even know.
Okay.
Anyway, fast forward. Well, I kind of lost my train of thought, because we were getting a job. I got a job with Talbot's.
Right.
And that was a wonderful job. That company was women operated. I don't know if they were necessarily women owned, but they were so good to their employees. We got a lot of PTO time, and anyhow, it was a really good company to work for. But one of the ladies that worked there came only to work once a month so that she could get her discount
at the store. Yes.
At the store.
Yeah.
Because she had kind of like the fancy country club life, and kind of her children were a little bit older and wanted something to do. And it turns out that her husband was one of the club managers and regional managers of a company called Club Corp, which is one of the largest private club companies in the world. They're in the golf and country club. And she just took a lot of personal. Her name was Robin Zolik. I still love her. Her husband Mickey, unfortunately passed away many years ago, but was super super impactful in my life because he was one of her. Robin and Mickey both were one of the people that took the time to be like, what do you want to do? What do you want to be? Where do you see yourself going?
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I don't really know. I don't know what career that is, but what I want to do is I want to be a positive influence or benefit people in their life, whatever that looks like. And so we fast forward to them giving me the opportunity to work as the member relations director at one of the country clubs in the Dallas-Fort Worth market. And that parlayed.
Is that Las Colinas? Was that the first one?
That was Hackberry.
Oh, that's right. Hackberry.
Yeah, that was Hackberry, and then ended up selling private events, I'm actually a certified wedding planner. I don't know if a lot of people know that. That was a little blip in time where the economy started to really dip down in 2007, 2008, 2009. And my sales job required me to take on an additional role in event planning and wedding planning. So I ended up getting certified to do that. And that was a blast. Membership sales, ended up meeting some of my favorite people in the world through that business. So I would say that for the vast majority of my adult career, it was in sales in one form or fashion.
Well, yeah, and that's when you were my sugar mama because at that point I think I was running a restaurant, or that might have been then, or maybe I was working at the swim school. I don't know, but Conrad wants to know if you want a job at his new venue, but
yeah, for sure.
But yes, you were the breadwinner of the household at that time for a good number of years, actually, because I was a merchandise buyer at Radio Shack for a little bit, and then I started doing the restaurant thing, which was wonderful for all of us. One of your favorite times in history.
Good times.
Yes, good times had by all then. And then so yes, it was the fact that you were out there, slogging away, especially because you had to work a lot of weekends. When you were doing the wedding stuff, like you were always out there Saturdays and Sundays because that's when all the weddings took place. So even when the kids came along, there was a lot of weekends that you had to be out, doing your thing, right?
Yeah, I think that was really the hard part because when we were just a married couple, we made our own schedules and everything. And in that particular business, you were primarily off Sunday, Monday,
right?
Worked Saturdays, even in membership sales and event sales, whatever the capacity was, because the club was traditionally closed to members on Monday. That's where we held a lot of our golf outings and things like that. And the point in time for me that I realized that I was not going to be forever for the hospitality business, although I very much loved it, was my very first Mother's Day.
Yeah.
And we had this huge brunch at the club and all of the sales staff were there. And I was leaving my tiny infant daughter on my first Mother's Day and was like, well,
yeah.
I don't
know if you were too happy with me at that point either.
Yeah, that's not going to work. And so yeah, and I got the benefit. I worked for that company for 11 years, and it was a wonderful experience for me. I had the benefit of working for some amazing bosses and met some amazing people. Learned a lot. Worked really really hard. Got some training, real world training, and sales and dealing with people and different circumstances and things like that.
Well, that's where you kind of cut your teeth on sales because we obviously, when you work in the restaurant industry, you're talking in front facing to people all the time. So you learn how to deal with all kinds of different folks and whatever. So that certainly helps. But then going into the club business and dealing with a different level of clientele, that kind of was a little bit of a spark to kind of help you get into real estate, only in that you learned a lot of things about dealing with people. And especially, you sell a lot of higher end homes. So dealing with that level of clientele and how that all works, you got a lot of experience with that too.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, the natural course of that business is to start out at the kind of starter, beginner, entry level clubs, and then work your way up to the higher luxury end. And so that did give me the opportunity to interface with really successful people, to kind of emulate how they behaved, and I would see them as they were entertaining their clients, and kind of started to just get a better, view of what the opportunities were and how to interact with people and all sorts of different walks of life too. Because we did have some ultra successful clients and business owners that we knew, and I wanted to aspire to their success. But also in the hospitality business, there's a lot of stuff that works underground, a lot of, people that are not making a lot of money to operate the facilities and, the banquet servers and all of that, and to really get to know them and their families, and, to see how hard they work to provide a lifestyle for their family. I mean, it just was altogether a really wonderful experience. Learned a lot about working with people of all walks of life.
So how did we transition because you're gonna have to tell me because I don't remember. How did we go from doing that and then getting into selling homes and being a realtor?
Yeah, so that kind of the situation. Well, I'll tell you what happened, and I probably wouldn't share the story except that I'm talking to you, my husband. But our daughter, Katie Jane, she got stung by a bee.
Uh-huh.
And I was working at a club that was about an hour from home on a good day with no traffic. And the school nurse called and said, "Hey, Katie got stung by a bee, and I don't think it's a 911 emergency situation, but she needs medical attention right now.
Mm-hmm.
What do we do?" And I couldn't get to our child.
Right.
Thank God, shout out to the real MVP, Kathy and Dennis. My parents live close to us and live close to the school, and they scooped her up and were able to take care of her until we could get there. But that particular, I know that seems really small and focused, but that was the main impetus of me saying, you know what? I just need to be more available for our family. And I love what I do, and I'm fortunate for, being able to provide a good life for our family, but I need to be more available for them.
Right.
And there was a job opportunity that ended up working out at a club that is in our hometown that, I mean, it's a wonderful club and there's wonderful members there and everything, but I don't want to say caliber of club wise, but honestly, I mean, I went to a much more.
You were in South Lake at Tiburon, and then
and then transitioned to one that is closer to home, and that was my first step to say, okay, well, if I can just not commute, I could just not commute and can be there and can run and pick the kids up for 30 minutes, drop them off at home, get back to work, that'll be the solution.
Right.
And it wasn't the solution, because what happened is even though I wasn't commuting and I was close to home and close to the kids, then soccer games started popping up.
Yes.
Because remember, I was working Tuesday through Saturday.
Yep.
And then started missing all the soccer games and all the t-ball games. And that wasn't going to sit right because I wasn't going to miss anything. It doesn't matter what it is. I didn't want to miss it.
Yes.
And we happened to be in a fortunate situation because you started working in the mortgage business. The restaurant thing was
in the rearview mirror.
Yeah. And with the kids both going into school full time, we had a wonderful nanny, several great nannies actually, that helped us because I was busy in my career and you were, trying to grow the restaurant business, that we needed help outside of the home. And with both kids being full time and we didn't have the expense of the extra childcare, that really was the opportunity where I was able to resign from the club business, go ahead and get my real estate license, which I did in 6 weeks. Because I procrastinated. And so really, Troy going into kindergarten was the start of me getting my real estate license.
Yes. And then, so tell me, or tell everybody about where you started with that, who you worked for, and then where you're at now. And, as far as selling real estate, what you're doing.
Yeah. So, I ended up working for Remax right out of the gate, through Mike in your business with, the mortgage company, ended up meeting a lot of people and ended up going as an independent agent at first. And that's I have a lot to say about real estate, and maybe we can download another time about people coming in the business and getting started. But I don't think that people realize that you get your license and you don't know anything about real estate. Like, you may know how many people sit on the board and the Texas legislature about this and that.
They come in the class. That's what they teach you in the class.
Oh my gosh. But in terms of actually, let me digress for just one quick second.
Okay.
I remember sitting in your office at the Remax office, and I was filling out my very first,
by the way, you went to work for Conrad's team who
Okay, well, yeah. Hold on.
Okay, all right.
I'm getting there. I'm getting there. So I'm in your office. I'm trying to write my very first contract. I have no idea how to do that.
Uh-huh.
No idea how to do that.
Right.
And I'm downloading the PDF from the Texas Real Estate Commission's website, and I'm trying to fill it out, and it's absolutely a disaster. And at that point in time, I realized that being a brand new agent on your own as an independent agent is really tough. I'm not saying that you can't do it. What I'm saying is that if you're lucky like me and had the opportunity to work for a team, the DeVries team, David DeVries, Conrad Jackson, two of my very dear friends, taught me how to realtor. Because you don't know. You really, really don't know. And it's not just about, hey, I have this question about this particular transaction. It's about surrounding yourself with people and just in the peripheral of what's happening in the business. You're hearing what they're saying. You're hearing how they respond to client questions. You're hearing about what is going on in the market. You're just absorbing kind of what is transpiring. And that's really how you learn in the business because man, like I said, I'm not saying that you can't do it. I wasn't equipped to go in and be a competent real estate agent without having people to surround me and to support me. And that's what the real estate team, the DeVries team did for me.
Yeah. Well, it's hard nowadays too, especially because there's, not many people going to the office anymore after COVID. So it's, everybody kind of stays and works from home. So as a new agent, you don't get a lot of exposure to being around other agents that, pick up, like you said, little tips and tricks, little things that they do here and there, how they interact with their clients, how they handle phone calls, how they deal with all that. You miss that piece unless you purposefully go out and try to get it because you're not around everybody all the time, because it is so segmented now because we stay home, you don't get the same experiences, right?
No, absolutely. And so how that had helped me and grew my business. And then all of a sudden I started to be able to answer questions without having to call Conrad. 487 questions a day. He's probably like, did she die? Like, I haven't heard from her today. Like, what's happening? And then I started being able to do it on my own. And the benefit of the team is that you learn. The downfall of the team is that you're branded as the team leader.
Right.
And at some point in time, I feel like, and it's not right for everybody, but I feel like for me as an agent, I wanted to be Susan Mills. And I wanted my listings to be represented as that. Right. And so then that was the natural transition once I felt like I was comfortable and capable to really advocate for my clients to move over to be an individual agent. And so now I'm at Front Real Estate.
Yes. So how did you get, or how do you, tell me about your experience at Front, how you obviously working with Amy and, the team over there. So how was that experience for you?
Yeah. So, it's kind of weird because I actually ended up transitioning in October of 2019. Just a few weeks before the entire world changed.
Oh, right. Yeah, yeah.
And so what I really liked about Front and what drove me to Front was that we were kind of on the peripheral of the entertainment district in Arlington. There were several really cute bars and restaurants that were around. And I thought this would be a really good way for me to expand my client base. Like, hey, come meet me for lunch at Cartel Taco, or let's, run over for a glass of wine at Tipsy Oak. Let me know about you, get me introduced in your social circle, because that's really how you grow your business in real estate is your social circle. You can do all of the Zillow marketing in the world. You can put yourself out there. And I think that, that might work for a very small percentage of agents, but in terms of really getting that referral based business, getting yourself out in the social circle, I think was important. And so that's really what drew me to Front, was just how Amy Cornell, who's our broker, is very, very active in the community, very active in the Arlington Board of Realtors. She's a freaking sharp lady. If you don't know her, she's impressive and was a mortgage banker at one point in time. So it just has a lot of just general experience. And so it ended up that was a really good fit for me. Transitioned to the brokerage, and then the holidays happened, and then the world shut down.
Yes. Does Tammy, is her family the Cartel Taco? Because she's appreciating your shout out.
Yeah, her brother, Tammy, right? Your brother-in-law, I think, is the owner of Cartel Taco. Tammy Lindley and I worked together for a really, really long time. She's transaction coordinator, awesome. Hi, I miss you. Awesome lady. And yeah, she's got family connections and they'd have ownership in Cartel Taco. I can't remember what that exactly is.
So Conrad says he needs more stories about this restaurant business. He feels like there's something we're not saying about it.
Conrad, do you want us to get divorced on air? Because I have a lot to say about it, but none of it's good.
No, it's okay. You can tell him your opinion on it, your opinion on just the hours and being gone all the time, and that no money and all that kind of fun stuff.
Man, well, first of all, let me tell you what's hard. What's hard is to start making money as a young person and feeling like that money is just there to spend.
Right.
So I guess a little bit of a rewind. So you ended up in a partnership owning a restaurant, And that ended up being a successful venture for us for a period of time.
Yep.
And we were taking trips to Europe and, refurnishing
Yep.
our house. And, I'm not saying that we were living it up big time, but doing things I feel like in
At that
retrospect, we're, kind of ahead of the curve a little bit, but now frivolous and probably beyond our means as a 43-year-old kind of looking back at the 20. Well, first of all, we bought our first house at 23 and 24 years old.
Yes.
So we started homeownership very early, which I super, super advocate for people.
Yeah, the hard part, though, is that right now we bought our first house for $130,000.
$135,000. We got our down payment from our income tax return, and our seller paid 100% of our closing costs.
Yes. And our rate, I think, was like 6.25 or something like that.
Yeah.
And it was, how many square foot was that house?
It was like 1,600 square feet. It was cute. It was over in like Shorewood, Lake Arlington for the locals. That it was a nice neighborhood. We were really fortunate to get that house. I don't know, like
what did that house sell for? I think you looked that up recently, not too long ago.
I mean, the value of that house now is probably 3.25, maybe something like that. Yeah. So anyway, life changes, everything changes, but.
Yeah, the restaurant thing was just hard because I was working until 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and especially once we had the second restaurant, because we had one to start with, and then we went to two, and the second one was at a hockey arena, and we had games, and it was like, I would be there till sometimes 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning when I'm getting home, especially after a game, cleaning everything up. So especially when you have two young kids and you were at home by yourself dealing with them, that was hard. Like that was some hard shit.
Yeah, that really sucked. That was not ideal. We made sacrifices hoping, because our hope with what happened was the first location was successful.
Yep.
And then the second location opened in January of 2008 when the economy really started tanking, and we were robbing Peter to pay Paul. So all of the profits from the first location were going to subsidize the marketing and operating expenses for the second location. You were gone all the time. I was working a full-time job, really steering the ship, and then also doing 100% of the maintenance almost with the kids while you were gone. It was really, really tough, and we weren't making any money.
No.
I was like, well, this grind is for the freaking birds.
No.
So something has to change, and it's either you decide what the next career is going to be, or I don't know what.
Yeah, it was bumpy there for a while, but I mean, I think everybody goes through that. I don't think that's anything that's any marriage that's lasted for as long as, or longer than we have. I don't know that there's very few people out there that go through marriage and just everything works out perfectly and we're like happy from day one. Like we went through some shit. Like it was rough, and it was financial related. It was being at the restaurant all hours of the night and being in that environment. All of that stuff was related to it, and it was hard. But those kind of things. I mean, I think we both grew from it. We both matured a little bit from it because we understood that we could go through some bumpy stuff when the kids were little and still come out the other side, and and now we are where we're at now. But I mean, I think everybody goes through that, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, I think that you have to, because marriage is work. I mean, I know that people come in thinking, oh, well, it's going to be just all sunshine and roses, and I really do think that the kind of the distance and the separation and the whatever that we had during that time where we didn't see each other very much, and everybody thought that they were carrying the load. You thought that you were, gone all the time trying to support the family, carrying 100% of the load. And I thought I was home, doing the other stuff, doing 100%.
Yeah. And still working too. Like you were doing both.
Yeah.
And we were struggling, and money was always tight. And, it wasn't, whenever you put the stress of money, you put the stress of young kids. Cause I think both of our kids were under the age of 5 at the time.
Oh no, they were 1 and 3.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, they were little.
You add that to it, and it just, it makes it hard. But I mean, like I said, I think that us going through that and dealing with those times, made us closer, after we came out of it and got into a better spot. I remember when I started getting into the mortgage business. So you remember I came home and I had gone to work at Texas Lending, and I was like training or whatever. And I showed up there and I was like, hey, cause I'm, if anybody that knows me, I'm a very optimistic person. Would you agree with that?
Yeah. 100%.
Yes. I'm very optimistic. I always think things are going to work out great. You're probably a little bit on the other side. Like you're a little more pessimistic, or not pessimistic, but just, worried. You're riddled with anxiety a lot of times. Would you agree with that?
Oh, 100%. I stress about things that aren't even on the horizon. So
right. She's always having dreams of somebody dying. Like we got, some issues there, but,
yeah.
but I remember I came home and I told you, I was like, hey, I think I really understand this. Like, I think I can really do well at this. I think I can have a good, successful career at this or whatever. And you were just kind of like rolling your eyes because I just spent the last 6 years explaining to you how the restaurant business was going to work out so well.
Well, I mean, that is not, first of all, people forget where you start from.
Yeah.
And I think what it takes to build a successful business in any walk of life. But I think the conversation is that you had an $11 an hour draw and everything was kill what you eat.
Yes.
So I'm like, oh wow, this sounds great. I feel like Taco Bell is paying $14 an hour. So
yes, you weren't exactly. It's not like you were discouraging, but you also weren't as enthusiastic as I was. Let's certainly say that. It took a little time to get you there. I mean, obviously it worked out and, everything's great, but at least at the time, especially because money was tight and, we were struggling and it was just like, okay, how are we going to make this work? And then I come home and tell you about my $11 an hour job, that I'm getting straight commission on. You were not real excited about that prospect either, but, like I said, it ended up working out and we got to where we are. So, now I think that those times, as hard as they were when we were going through them, I think coming out the other side of it and being where we are today makes us appreciate that. I mean, I learned a ton. As much as hard as being in that restaurant business was, I joke all the time that's where I got my MBA. I didn't get my MBA at SMU. I got it at Zuroma. So, I learned a bunch of stuff because I made a ton of mistakes. And when you make a bunch of mistakes, you get a real quick lesson in what not to do. And then I also think we had a greater appreciation for, how to take care of our finances and, to make sure that we were protected for later on down the road because we didn't want to go through that again. And I think we were fortunate, your parents were there. My parents have always been there. So, we've been lucky that we've had people in our lives to support us. So if we ever did run into really, really big problems, we always had, and somebody there is a safety net, which most, not everybody has that. So we were very lucky in that regard, but it still was hard. It was tough and it was stressful and it was, and again, having the 2 kids and going through all that, it just, it put a lot of strain on us.
Yeah, it did, but it all ended up working out.
Yeah. So, so there was a little glimpse into the Mills life there, but, so one of the things that we did recently, that we kind of talked about a little bit and it aired and it took a long time was, we did a show called, Lakefront Bargain Hunt Renovation. This was on the Magnolia Network, which used to be DIY, that the Texas born and bred Mr. Chip and Miss JoJo run that network now. So why don't you tell the story about how all of that came about, basically?
Yeah, so that was really cool how that had transpired. So we had purchased a home on Lake Whitney, which is kind of between the Dallas-Fort Worth market and Waco, where Chip and Joanna actually are doing their thing. And I had been contacted by, I guess,
Show
talent scouts
yeah.
or whatever you want to call them, to see because I obviously represented Mike in purchasing the home as his real estate agent. So they reached out to me as the realtor and said, hey, would your clients be interested in, renovating this house and being on our Lakefront renovation show? And I was like, well, as it turns out, that's actually my family. We purchased it as a renovation. It was funny because the house was so ugly. I guess they thought, wow, there's no way these people are going to buy this house and not renovate it.
Yeah, it was orange on the inside. It was really weird.
It was like a Skittle, actually. It had like every flavor of the rainbow and paint in that house. But anyway, the short story with that is that particular property was too far along in the renovation process to actually film. And all the while they had kind of kept in contact with us because they knew that we were looking for another short-term rental property. And when we ended up finding the one at Cedar Creek, which is where the show was filmed, we kind of got back in a connection, and you go through a process of, I guess, casting and yeah, so that's kind of how that worked out.
Yeah. So we had to go through, they had to meet with us. We had to tell them kind of our story and where we came from and all that kind of stuff. And then you go through the process of looking for the house and, you look at other places and kind of get all that.
You can't tell you have to sign. You can't say anything about it. So we can't say a whole lot about it.
Well, I mean, at this point it's like, we want to get into too much detail, but let's not. right? I don't think the DIY police are coming after us, but basically you look at these different properties and you select one, and then once you pick that one, then you go through the renovation process of it, right?
Yep.
And so so picking out the house that we ended up ultimately settling with, what was what was it about that particular place that drew you to it?
Well, first of all, I'm gonna just tell you, just real estate in general is that you need to purchase a home that fits your needs. So I know that a lot of people have different thoughts on it, but what our purpose in buying that property was not for us to family vacation there. Now we do utilize it. We go down there occasionally. We're really not in the season of life to be able to use it as much as we'd like.
Yeah, we have kids that have tournaments every single weekend for the rest of our lives. So yes.
But we wanted to use that house as a short-term rental, and the lot was big. They had a decent view of the lake, and it was affordable enough to renovate it and do what we felt like needed to be done for it to be attractive to have weekenders come in and rent the house.
Right.
So that's why. Also, too, the previous homeowner did a really, really good. She actually was a real estate agent. I don't think she carries an active license now, but the updates that she had done already were very tasteful, and there was a minimal amount of work that we needed to do to the main property. The majority of the work that we did was we ended up adding a little casita guest suite, and then we built a big dock. But in terms of actually the primary part of the residence, not much needed to be done at all. She did a beautiful job with it.
So I'm going to add a little clip so we can get out here. Let everybody take a look. This is just a little preview of what they did with us.
All right, you guys ready to catch some fish?
Yeah.
I'm Susan. This is my husband, Mike.
I'm a mortgage banker, and she's a real estate agent.
Ooh.
The bait.
What is that?
We live in Mansfield, Texas with our daughter, Katie Jane, who is 13, and our son, Troy, who is 11.
All right, show us how it's done, dude.
Cast it out a little bit, and then make sure to clip this back.
That was a lot of information to retain.
We're out here looking for a lake house in Cedar Creek Lake. Its proximity to Dallas is just, an hour and 20 minutes or so. It's got over 320 linear miles of shoreline.
There's no lack of lakes around here, so growing up, we did wakeboarding, we do fishing. I've been doing it since I was a kid.
Nothing like the smell of catfish bait in the morning.
One of the reasons why we really love Cedar Creek Lake is that the commute is really easy.
We live in Mansfield. It's about an hour and 20 minutes back and forth. So if we can get within an hour, 2 hours of where we live, it's kind of like you get a vacation home that kind of pays for itself. We both lead pretty hectic lives back home. Whenever we get a chance to kind of get away, we really just want to sit down, relax.
Fish really have no interest in me.
You smell the same.
You're so rude.
Okay, Mommy, hang on. Lele, come on.
There's the love of your life.
My actual soulmate.
Yes, your actual soulmate right there, the white dog.
My real estate agent for this wonderful journey is my beautiful bride.
Finding properties is kind of obviously my specialty, obviously.
We are constantly kind of on the lookout for possible investments. Seeing houses and what they can become and their potential.
So it makes a lot of sense to put our investment in something that we know about and we practice what we preach.
You're really mad at this, Dad.
I am looking for something that is all in $475,000 or below. That would include, of course, the price of the home and then any renovations that we would need to do. Definitely 3-bedroom, 2-bath. We've got a ton of animals. They travel with us. So a fenced yard is really, really important. And really, we've got to have a place to entertain. We've got a big family. We host a lot of events.
Looks
like you gotta do your hair again, Mama.
The water access is a big player for me personally. It doesn't necessarily have to be on the water, just as long as I could get there easily.
That's going to be kind of a hard task. This is a popular lake. There's truly not a lot of inventory available.
He's going to need a bath before he gets in the car.
So,
oh, my Lele.
So, how did you feel like going through all that? What was the experience like? Was you fun? Would you do it again? Like, how did you feel about all that?
Yeah, I mean, I would 1,000,000% do it again. That was a wonderful experience. I have nothing but good things to say about everybody that we interacted with the network and the production company and the people that were there filming. And, I really didn't even know what to expect because we had shown up for the first time at the house. They were in constant communication with what we needed and kind of, what the plan was, but they come out with 2 vans of people. And I was kind of a little bit blown away by, how much that they invested in each episode and all of that. I don't really know what to expect, but I didn't think it was going to be an entire production crew and set assistants and all of that. It was really, really fun to go through. I would 1,000,000% do it again.
Did you feel like that? I mean, what we ended up doing with the house. I mean, are you pleased with how it turned out? I mean, do you think that it's exactly what you wanted? Was there something that you would take back on what we did with it that you thought would be better?
The only thing that I think that after I don't know how many times we're going to over improve a property, but I
Yes, we definitely look, okay, so full disclosure here. So when we did our first property at Lake Whitney, the intent was we were going to use it as a vacation property ourselves, and then we were going to rent it out when we weren't there. And we did, but then ultimately jumping into this one. But when you were thinking about living there yourself and going there, then you want all the amenities that you want as a homeowner. So you kind of overdo it a little bit. So it's like you got to know what your intent with the property is before you go into it. I mean, we certainly made mistakes. I mean, there's no doubt about it. We spent too much money on both of them. Hindsight being 2020, you want to go back and make some adjustments. But I mean, I think they both turned out well. But we learned a lot about over improvement in those situations.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing is that what my vision was is to go in and I wanted to feel like our home away from home was somewhere equally as comfortable.
Right.
Not really thinking, okay, well, people are here to have like a cabin experience.
Right.
Well, particularly at Lake Whitney, to have a cabin experience and, just to get away from it all. And it really didn't need to be
Bougie.
Super bougie. I mean, that particular house is moderately bougie. I feel like the Cedar Creek house is a little bit more, has a little bit more of a, I don't know.
It's a neighborhood feel. It's not quite on.
Yeah. It's more, it's more neighborhood
like a residence where you would live. And
I do think that we spent a little bit more than we probably should have, especially too, because we have been to this, we haven't stayed at Lake Whitney since 2021.
Yeah. 2 years almost.
And we haven't stayed at Cedar Creek since April of 2022.
Yes.
So
there's a lot of other people enjoying the houses.
Yeah.
But they've been decent income generators. We get good rent from them. The short-term rental thing is we're still learning how to do that a little bit better. So, we're both in the industry, but at the same time, I mean, we're not experts at everything. You kind of work your way through, you learn this stuff, you make mistakes, you fall down, you get back up, you try to figure out the best method to handle each one of these properties. And it's all a little bit different every time.
Well, yeah. And like I said, I mean, I think the big mistake that I made particularly was that you need to keep in mind how you're going to be using the property.
Right.
And for us, we spent a lot of money on building a dock at Cedar Creek for, a boat and jet ski lifts. And we bought jet skis and they have never been lifted in that dock, not even once. They haven't even been untrailered on our property.
Some of that's timing.
Because we don't go down there and use it. And, I thought, okay, well, if we're going to be building it, we might as well go all out and do it. And that way, when people are there utilizing the property, they can bring their boat and all of that and really utilize it. But the fact of the matter is that if you're occasionally renting a short-term rental on a lake, you probably aren't going to, even if you had the boat, I don't know that you would
maybe
haul it around. I don't know. I think that, there are just, now that we've learned, if we would do it an additional time, there are some things that I would really scale back on.
Yeah. Which I think, at some point we may end up doing another one again too, whenever the market picks back up. We're both, we're being both in real estate. When things are great, they're great. And when things go down, they go down. Right. So
talk about putting all your eggs in one basket. I don't know that I would necessarily recommend that as much, but it is good in a sense and bad in a sense.
Yeah,
we relate to each other a lot.
Yeah, it's up and down. It just depends on, on the time and how it all plays out. But, it's good. So, all right. Now, so the show was fun. We had a blast doing it. She would do it again. I don't know. I'm not sure if I would, but
the kids certainly wouldn't.
The kids most certainly would not. They didn't like that. So, but now let's get into one of your other talents, which is why I wanted you here, is you are able to sniff out a bargain. And that is one of the things that you have revolve around your cats or
I
they
have cute
revolve
freaking cats.
or they revolve around 3.5 cent soap that you got for, or $5 soap you got for 3.5 cents, and you bought 6,000 of them, and now we have soap till the end of time. So tell me about, what is it about finding a deal that that gives you such, such adrenaline that you're just fired up and ready to go?
I don't know that it gives me adrenaline necessarily, but I think that, well, first of all, my mom really taught me how to shop. She was and has always been a really good shopper, has always, taught me how to buy things on sale and things like that and really get your most for the money and all of that. So I really attribute a lot of my shopping skill and negotiating skill, from her. But I think too, I mean, it really just depends because first of all, that was out of necessity. When we were, young and, new homeowners and needing to furnish a new home and, there wasn't marketplace then, but we were going to garage sales and trying to find deals to stretch the money as far as we possibly could. And, buying nice things for the kids and all of that. So I think that the skill of that was out of necessity. And now that things are more comfortable, yeah, I mean, if I can get what you're talking about, the soap, I mean, the semi-annual clearance sale, I mean, I would stock up for the whole year because I know that those are things that we will need throughout the season. So why not, pay $3 versus 7 or whatever the case may be.
So how do you find these things? Like what is it that, like, where are you looking? Where do the deals pop up? Is this stuff that you just see online? Are you specifically, do you know times of years when things go on sale? Like, how does that work?
Yeah, well, absolutely. I mean, there are seasonal sales. I don't necessarily
I can't believe I'm encouraging your shopping, by the way, but here we go.
I don't necessarily follow that, but I think in relation to real estate, what I think that you need to do is to decide on something that you really love, and that's a splurge item. And then I think that there's opportunity to work around how to make renovations or to furnish your home in more of affordable way. So like, for example, like with our personal home, our living room, well, first of all, our house was built in 1978 and it is very typically compartmentalized type of space for that time frame. And we've done some renovations to open it up, but our living room is kind of long and narrow. And so I needed to have a specific couch that would fit that space to comfortably, accommodate our family and friends. So I did make a splurge. I did find something that needed to be made that I felt like was worth the money, high quality, that would last a long time, because you will always get what you pay for unless you find an amazing deal when it comes to that. And then what I would do is go to Home Goods or TJ Maxx or Marketplace and then get all of the accessory items for the room. Throw pillows, I'm going to get this couch and then a million other accessory items that I could have found for a better price. And honestly, I think a lot of it has to do with time too. I do have the time to go and really think about what I want. What I'll do is I'll, have like kind of a vision board on Pinterest or something that I've seen on Instagram. Be like, okay, well, I generally like this theme. So then I'll go and try to replicate it over time by finding components that match that vision.
Right. So whenever you're out and about, that's you have, especially related to our house, you're always looking for, well, it seems like you're always looking for pillows because we have every pillow known to man. But you certainly have a theme and colors that are in mind when you're doing that type of stuff, right?
Yeah. Well, when you're on a budget, you can't rush design.
Right.
You just have to be patient and wait and see if you can find what you're looking for.
Right.
So
these days, the market shifts a little bit more towards buyers, although lately, we're getting into the spring season. So that's kind of changed some. The sellers are getting multiple offers again. So the market
fun.
is adjusting. Yes. Yeah. But with that being said, if you were if you had somebody that came to you and wanted to sell their house and they felt like, they needed to spruce it up just a little bit. Like, we got to add some pieces here. We got to make it a little bit more attractive to the buyers as they come through. What are some things that you would focus on, or what would you tell them, and to keep the budget, the cost relatively low, but have the biggest impact?
Well, what I don't advocate for is people putting a lot of money into their house to sell it.
Okay.
If you wanted to improve the house, you should have done it and enjoyed it while you lived there. to improve the house, to sell it, to me, doesn't necessarily make sense, especially because we're in a very transitional market right now. We're not really sure what's going to be happening, next week. What I can tell you is the most impactful thing that you can do is make sure that your home is clean. And I don't mean like make sure that there's no clutter on the cabinets. I need to make sure that if you need to hire somebody to steam clean your carpets, to clean the grout on your tiles, to make sure that you've got a handyman that's come in, to make sure that there's no cuts and nicks in the screens and things like that. The general aesthetics of your house is clean and well cared for is more important than having your master bathroom retiled. Another thing that I think is very impactful is making sure that the exterior of your home shows well in the listing photography and their first impressions. So if I'm going to spend money on a house, it's always going to be to clean up the yard, to put fresh mulch down, to just get a couple of nice pots with seasonal flowers, so that it's warm and welcoming and it feels well kept. Because I'm telling you that if you walk in and it smells like dog, that's going to be a problem.
Right. So you think I guess the impression somebody walks in, they're seeing the big stuff, right? Like you were talking about the mulch in the yard and that kind of thing. And then they're noticing that the house is clean, but they're not necessarily noticing little things per se, right? It's more big things, right?
Yeah. Well, here's the deal. When we bought our very first house, and we had seen a lot, because when we purchased our home, it was very much a buyer's market, and we had the opportunity to have a lot of inventory to choose from. And the reason that we ultimately chose our house was because it was so well maintained. Listen, it had builder's grade carpet throughout. It had hunter green laminate countertops. It had builder's grade everything.
Yeah. Laminate flooring or
linoleum floors.
Yeah. Do they even have linoleum anymore?
I haven't seen linoleum in a minute.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is that when I walked in, I thought, okay, well, eventually we'll have the money to put in granite.
Right.
Eventually we'll tear out this carpet and do, the laminate floors.
Right.
Eventually we'll be able to upgrade this. But right now it's a clean, comfortable, safe place for our family. And that for representing first-time buyers that are in, the market for that. Now, once you start getting to this, the secondary or tertiary home or whatever, I mean, some of the expectation is that it's done, but just generally speaking,
yeah, and we did all those things, and then we promptly sold the house right after that, which was awesome.
That's kind of the theme.
Every time we tend to do renovations on a house, we've turned around and sell it, except for the one that we're in now, thank God. But all right, so when somebody buys a house, then right, you're a new home buyer, you got your home, and let's just say that you've got a $5,000 budget. Okay, now obviously personal preference plays a role on what you want in your house or whatever, but in your experience, what would you suggest as far as if you have that money, what's going to have the biggest impact that you're going to be able to enjoy, that's going to give you even a little bit of, I don't want to say resale value, because you're not, if you just bought your house, you're not looking to sell it immediately, but certainly something that is going to be a little bit more long lasting. Like, what do you think the money is best spent on?
Well, I mean, I kind of think it depends on the age of the house. I would say that if it's an older house, paint and texture is the number one thing. Updating, like if you've got popcorn ceilings and all sorts of weird paneling working, definitely paint and texture is the biggest cost bang for your buck there is.
So we've bought a lot of paint over the years. I know specifically because I've painted a lot of rooms. So what is your where do you go get paint? Where do you think that who has the best paint? What has the best quality? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, I'm a Sherwin-Williams girl. I kind of feel like that, like people have like different brands of things that they're, I'm a Ford man or I'm a truck man. I'm Sherwin-Williams all the way, die hard to the grave. That to me has the most versatile paint palette. And although you can get it at Sherwin-Williams, you can get, there's another hardware store at Lowe's has a Sherwin-Williams line that can replicate it.
Okay. So paint, get the ceiling untextured, popcorn ceilings. Nobody likes those, I guess. Are those ever going to come back? I feel like
they're never going to come back. God willing, the creek don't rise. Dear God, please don't put popcorn on the ceiling. Now that really was out of convenience because that was the easiest way to cover crappy ceiling jobs, honestly. So now I feel like we hold everything to a higher standard and things like that. So hopefully that won't come back just out of convenience for the builders. But assuming that your house is already painted, the next thing that I would hit up would be floors.
Okay.
obviously, allergies and maintenance and things like that, having a hard surface floor is far more popular than, a carpeted floor. And also too, one thing that's really, really distracting to buyers is having mismatched flooring. So every room in the house is a different pattern, or, this needed to be done. And so we only have the means to do that. If you can get one cohesive, unified flooring pattern throughout the house. I know if you're saying $5,000, I guess it depends on
The size of the house.
the size of the house, and if
Or you
you're
can
able
do
to
one
do
room at a time,
some labor yourself, or,
Right.
or whatever that is. But I would say having a cohesive look when it comes to the flooring would be my next. And then the third thing would be kitchen. And I know that that's kind of an expensive upgrade, but what I would consider is the things that you actually utilize for functionality. So if you've got laminate countertops and old 1980 appliances, go for the appliances. Because the beautiful thing about social media is that there are thousands of accounts that will teach you how to faux finish, or to epoxy, or to cement, or whatever. You don't necessarily have to pay for somebody to have high-end finishes in your home if that's not something that's in the budget, or if you just need to band-aid something temporarily. If you're going to do the kitchen, I would focus on functionality, and then aesthetic secondary.
Yeah, I feel like you've brought a lot of science experiments home between everything that you've spray painted, everything that you've textured, you've recovered things like.
Well, it makes me mad because they're like, "Oh, what's your hobby? Golf, tennis, fishing." And I'm like, "Why is spray paint not a hobby? That's literally my favorite thing in the entire world to do is spray paint."
You spray painted our bathroom because that's the one room in the house we haven't done yet in a long or at all as far as renovation goes, because nobody else sees it. And our bathroom was one of your first experiments in that house, was spray painting at least. But yes, you do spray paint everything.
I almost died 3 times from spray paint chemicals, but it's fine. It's fine. Looks great.
Yes, of course. So when you're looking for deals on stuff, or when you're shopping for even large items like appliances or anything, like, where are your go-tos that you're trying to get, that's going to have the best deals, that necessarily isn't stuff that's out of style or out of stock? Or where are you finding that kind of stuff?
Warehouse, scratch and dent.
Okay.
All the way. One thing that I do try to hang up on is to have the same brand in a kitchen. If you can get, the same washer or dishwasher and, range and ovens to match, I feel like that is the best bet. But listen, if you can save $1,000, or 60% on a refrigerator that has a dent on the side that your cabinet's on, why would you, waste money otherwise if it's tight in the budget? Now, I think I'm kind of moving more towards when we were renovating the lake houses and rental properties and things like that. I feel like, if your house is your home and your showpiece, I don't advocate. You're like, hey, don't get the cheapest thing that you can find. Be happy and comfortable, and some things are worth the splurge. Particularly some appliances, that'll last a long time, and you do get what you pay for. But yeah, I think a really big way to save money is to do scratch and dent appliances. And another thing too is that if you are renovating and you've got a contractor, they should be able to tell you specifically how many square feet of whatever material you need. So the first thing that I'll do is, if I go to, say, like Floor and Decor, if we're doing a renovation project, I will have my measurements that I know that I need. And then I don't have to have 27 pallets of something in the back. If I have just enough for an accent tile that's, maybe more expensive than I want to pay per square foot, but they've got just enough of it, well, then great, I'll go for that. And then move along to, more moderately or low end prices for just like run of the mill stuff.
One of the things I forgot when we were doing the show, when I was going through looking for a clip to do for this, you had talked about doing tile work, and you had actually picked a bigger tile versus the smaller tile, because even though the bigger tile was a little more expensive, you had factored in the fact that the labor to install the bigger tiles was going to be much cheaper than the little tiles. And so that was the reason that you made that decision on that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So like if you get a good like 12 by 18 inch tile, and you can do the majority of your shower walls with it, it's got a twofold benefit. Yeah, I mean, the price per square foot might be a little bit more on there depending on what tile you pick. It might not be. I mean, the more intricate it seems, might be more expensive. But the labor and the installation is going to be far faster, far less, more efficient. And then also too, when you're talking about cleaning in those grout lines, I mean, honestly, the more intricate a tile, like, people say, or one thing that used to be really popular is those glass mosaic backsplashes, the teeny tiny little narrow tiles everywhere. Man, what a mess that is to clean anywhere because you've got grout lines and everything like that. So yeah, that is, think about labor, think about, cost of installation when you're picking your materials. That'll save some money occasionally.
So when you design a room, you alluded to this a little bit earlier, but when you're looking at putting a room together, whether it be a living room or a bedroom or anything like that, and we've had a few friends that you've helped kind of put together their VRBOs, done some, work in redesigning bathrooms and things like that. So how do you had said, you pick that one thing that is your thing and then you kind of build around it. So explain kind of how that works a little bit.
Well, I think that well, first of all, let me just tell you something that really aggravates me.
Okay.
I think that it's unrealistic for people to redecorate their house every 3 years or three or 2 years as designs change.
Right.
And you'll see a lot, particularly on social media with TikTok, these luxury design firms come out and they're like, oh, 5 things that are out that I wouldn't do. Well, okay, first of all, if you did design your home to be in the current trend, you have to know that is eventually going to fade out.
Right.
And usually, honestly, by the time it hits the mainstream, it's really kind of hitting its expiration date anyway. And so, shiplap or barn doors or whatever, if you're still installing that happened, 5 or 6 or 8 years ago. And now, it's dating your design. But one thing I do have to say is that if you love a barn door or if you love shiplap or you love whatever, it's your house and people want to design for other people. And then they're ultimately not happy and comfortable with the way that it turns out. So my number one piece of advice is to pick something that you really love. So whether that is an expensive or intricate, decorative tile for a bathroom or a backsplash or whatever that is, or an expensive appliance, a bold color choice appliance or something like that, and then build around that. I would find something that you personally love, and then it'll always be timeless to you.
Yeah.
So who cares what's his name in New York City says about your subway tile? Apparently subway tile's out now.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Well, like you did it with the Lake House in Whitney. It has a really big great room where there's a lot of space in there. And I remember when we were kind of trying to figure out how we were going to set it up, the very first thing that we went to go look for was a table. You were looking for a big table that would fit in that room. And then everything else was going to kind of go around that. Right.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, functionality first. One thing that I think that that I see a lot when people make mistakes when they're decorating is scale and size and functionality, right? So you have to keep in mind what the purpose of what you're doing is. And so for us in that big space, we needed big furniture.
Right.
And that's not cheap. The bigger, the more expensive. So I had to find a way to, what I did was we had a custom table made through a builder there that was so big that they had to actually bring it in and put it together in the house.
Yep.
So it's kind of a permanent fixture. And then I went on Marketplace and bought 16 eclectic chairs that were my particular style, and that offset the cost of having to have the table custom made
or whatever,
and have an expensive set. So I saved money on the chairs, put more money into the table, and that really set the tone and the space and the separation and the dimensions for how we wanted the room to flow.
Yeah. Well, I do think, it's been, I'm glad because I don't have to worry about that kind of stuff because I'm terrible at those things. So, with the houses that we've done over the years, you've always, taken the reins on that piece. And even though, we're always going to spend money on that kind of stuff, but it's always a conscious thing for you. And for that, I really, really appreciate it because at least, we know going into it that we're going to have to spend money, but you do a better job of spending the money wisely, which I'm terrible about because if I just need something, I just go get it and pay for it. And I don't think about how much it costs. And, just like returning stuff, if I bought a pair of jeans and I don't like them, they'll sit in my closet for 6 months and you eventually return those things. But, you tend to find whether it's, you're finding deals or whether you're, taking stuff back and going through the entire pain in the butt process of returning things and going through all that. It's something that, you can find money in places and you can save money in places, but you have to put thought into it. And it does take a little bit of time. It's not something that just, happens overnight. Right.
Yeah. Well, and I'm to your point, I'm not going to leave money laying around. So if we've over purchased in materials, like floor and decor is wonderful in terms of taking back, extra material. Now, if you do a renovation, you are going to need extra for specific cuts, especially if you like want a specific pattern. For example, we had a very basic tile in our kitchen floor, but it was laid in a herringbone pattern, and that creates a lot of waste because of the specific cuts of the tile. So, you do have to account for things like that. And if a tile gets broken, you need to have some back stock if there, is an issue or you need to replace a small amount. But there's no reason to let, $100 or $200 or $500 in spare tile lay around in your garage.
So we're just over an hour, and we've been going at it here. So we're going to be wrapping this thing up, but I do want to let you, is there anything, if you're talking to new buyers or new sellers or anybody in this market right now that, you would suggest, or any kind of parting thoughts you want to leave us with on what to do on your house or what you're looking for in homes, or anything related to what you want to talk about?
Man, it's kind of tough. I think that the one thing that I tend to talk about the most is that you've got to keep an open mind when you're shopping for a house, because a lot of times homeowners will have the house set up for the way that they live. And although it could be a very functional floor plan for your family, or, a great location school-wise or whatever you're looking for, just don't be bound by the way that particular homeowner utilizes the space. Because if you don't need a formal dining room, I have these clients, wonderful people, have a gorgeous home, going through kind of touring it to get it set up to list. And they have a very large breakfast room, and they have a very substantial table, and they have a big family. They do not need the formal dining room that they have in their home. And they have it set up with like 4 club chairs and a little table and all of their, wine decor and fancy wine glasses and their wine cooler. And that's a wonderful use for space. So, I would say that think about using a home in the way that you want to utilize it, and don't be bound by the way that the previous homeowner has it set up. Just try to envision the space as a blank slate. And in that same thought, when you're selling your house, make it a blank slate. Mm-hmm. Don't over clutter and, try to have it, because what you're using that house for may not be what another buyer might want. Right. So minimize when you're listing the house.
Well, I think that's great. That's a great way to end it. So, well, thank you for everybody that stuck around with us to the end. This was a lot of fun.
It's a little walk down memory lane. I thought about some stuff I haven't thought about in a while.
I appreciate you coming in, babe. We are going to go do your favorite thing after this.
Eat lunch.
Not what anybody else was thinking there, but yes, we're going to go eat, and which is her favorite pastime aside from selling real estate and shopping. So that's probably number one, actually. But we're going to go do that. But I really appreciate you coming in and spending some time with me today, because we don't get to do this very often. And I'm sure maybe we'll come back around for episode 80 and we'll have you back again. Okay, dear?
Sounds great. Love you.
I love you too. All right. We'll see all you guys, and we'll be back next week.